Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. Now, I'm super excited for this episode. Why? Because we have a very special guest for everyone here today. His name is Richard Burge, and he is the CEO of the London Chamber of Commerce. Now, guys, if you don't know what the London Chamber of Commerce is, by the end of this episode, you're going to know it really well, and you have to join. Right, and we're going to go through details on how you can go about doing that. But please welcome on stage Richard Burge. Oh my goodness, Richard, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
My pleasure, Kay. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I mean,
welcome to the shambles of my room.
No, it looks very collected. It looks like you've traveled a lot and you've collected a lot of things from different places.
Yeah, I was born in Hong Kong. I've lived in Kenya and Yemen and Nigeria and Germany and France and Singapore and Sri Lanka. And I've worked in 70 countries.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so do you know 70 languages?
No, of course I I barely know English.
I had to ask, but
I'm one of these people who struggles with languages, and I can learn them, but if they don't keep using them, then they just disappear.
It's true. Yeah, it's a skill that you have to keep on going with to make sure that you're up to point. Because I actually learned British Sign Language, right, a few years ago, and did it a lot, right? Yeah. And then I stopped and I'm like, oh my God, what's A again? What's the alphabet, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, you definitely have to keep up with the language to be on top of things.
It's the reinforcement of it, I find. If you're not reinforcing that learning all the time, it just disappears.
And it's
not just old age, I've discovered. It happens to young people as well, which is
But reinforcement, I'm glad that you mentioned that and brought it up, because reinforcement is just as in language, is in every aspect of life and business.
Yeah.
Right? Which we're going to delve in a little bit more deeper. But before we go into all of that, I would love for you to share a little bit about, well, a little birdie told me that back in the day, you actually worked in London Zoo.
Yeah, I did. So that was my first chief executive role. I was 36 years old, so it was 29 years ago. And I was made Director General of the Zoological Society of London. And it was in the middle of a huge crisis. So I had London Zoo, Whipsnade Wild Animal Park, a big research institute, and we had about 21 projects in other countries around the world on conservation work. And it was in a big financial crisis. So I was there for 4 years. Really interesting. Absolutely fascinating organization. Lots of problems I didn't expect. Issues where I didn't even know it was possible to have a problem. We found there were problems. But like lots of businesses, and this was it's clearly a not-for-profit. It had all the similar. It had human resource problems. It had managing capital expenditure, looking at the management accounts, all that stuff, all the usual stuff. But then some unusual, issues around it to do with animals and human-animal interaction. Yeah.
You got me curious now. What kind of unusual or the most strangest thing did you come across whilst working there?
Well, I suppose the strangest thing is the way animals react to you as the boss, because particularly apes and monkeys recognize hierarchies in humans.
No way, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. So there was the red-faced howler monkey, the male is called Horace, and I used to go past, and the problem is, even though it wasn't a hierarchical place, we were all first name terms, all the staff and everything, but they could sense who was the boss and who wasn't. So they very quickly sensed I was the boss. So Horace would his female companions would then present their rear end to me through the at which point Horace would just go ballistic. And Horace would go ballistic. If he could see me literally half a mile away, he would go mad.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to be quite careful, because I used to sort of, poor old Horace would go mad at me. And people around worrying about this monkey who was just angry. He wasn't nothing wrong with it. He was just very funny. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Life was full of sort of very curious things.
Yeah. Now you got the curiosity flowing, right? Now you've worked at London Zoo. What kind of other places have you worked at before? And then I'd be interested to learn what experiences and what things you've learned on the way about business.
Well, the quick sequence is that I started life as an evolutionary biologist, studied zoology at Durham. I taught for a little bit, then I went to Sri Lanka as a Commonwealth scholar and studied elephant and water buffalo in a place called Yala National Park in the southeast of the corner. And then I left and I joined the British Council, worked my way, spent a lot of time in Nigeria, ended up as head of Africa and Middle East operations for the British Council. So we had 150 projects in 28 countries, about 5,000 staff working on them. It's very, very strange. Then I left the British Council because I was young and ambitious and thought a lot of myself. And then I went to run the Zoological Society of London. Then I ran a campaigning organisation called the Countryside Alliance. And then I set up my own business, working mostly in Africa, but also in the UK, working a lot on the politics and negotiations around issues related to environment. So I did that. And then I rejoined the public service. I went and ran for the Foreign Office, something called Wilton Park, which is a big country house in the middle of nowhere in Sussex. Run by the Foreign Office. And what it does, it's a conciliation centre. It engages in quite intense dialogues about really gritty stuff in the foreign affairs world. It's not secret. It's quite discreet about what it does, but it's not a secret place. And so I ran that, and that had to make its own living. And then I left that, ran the Commonwealth Enterprise Council during CHOGM in London, and then came to London Chamber 7 weeks before lockdown. I suppose
No way.
There's no logic in that. I mean, one of my children casually said, "John, that's not a career, Dad. That's just one gullible employer after another," which is probably closer to the truth than I'd like it to be. But I suppose in all of those, what I've been doing, despite the fact they've all been different subject areas, different issues, the core thing is I seem to be quite attracted to running organisations which are delivering some sort of public benefit, but have to do it from a very commercial point of view. In other words, they don't have access to large government grants or anything like that. They have to earn their way in the world in order to deliver that public benefit. And I just seem to gravitate towards those organizations.
Well, that is awesome, right? Because you're serving the world in a better way, right? And getting different services, products, and everything out there in a better way, helping the environment with animals. You worked with animals, you've seen how that works. And we had a funny conversation off air about animals and people.
Yeah.
But we won't go into that right now. But I guess, what are some of the top key areas or top key things that you have learned regards to business along your entire journey?
Well, I think the most important thing is, it's not the most important thing, but if you don't get this right, everything else fails, is get the money sorted. I've always had this view that spending slightly less than you earn is a good philosophy in life. I wish I could do it in my private life. Don't seem to be able to make it work, personal bank balance. But I do it with business, and the fundamental must be, yes, there may be times when you'll invest in things and you'll spend more, but actually fundamentally in your operations you must always be spending less than you earn. And without that, you will be just running from crisis to crisis, and you're never able to sort of look back at your organization. Second thing is, it's a thing, my wife keeps asking me, how much time am I spending working in my business? And how much time am I spending working on my business? How much time...
I love Karen, right? She is a business coach. Of course, she's going to be asking you these questions.
Yeah, she's on my case. But it is, I mean, it's true. I do have to try and set aside time to step back from the day-to-day administration of the business and have time to think about it, to look at it from the outside, and to try and say, okay, where is it going? And the third thing, I think, this is the one thing I've started to realize in the past couple of years. So this is after, 40, I've been working now for 44 years. I've been 30 years as a chief exec. And I've just started to dawn on me that actually having purpose is key. Everything else
Interesting.
You don't have purpose, the whole thing's meaningless. And everyone says, oh no, that's the luxury, that's the sort of, woo-woo factor of, somebody who spent too much time in Los Angeles or something like that. I don't think it is. I think its purpose gets you out of bed in the morning. And frankly, I'm interested in management accounts, but if that's what I had to look at every day, I wouldn't bother to pick up.
Right.
Management accounts and the money is a servant to the purpose of the business. Now, the business has got to make money. It's got to give you the resources, the personal resources that you want in order to live the life you wish to lead. You've got to employ people, and they've got to be secure and have have resources as well. But in the end, it's got to be some purposefulness about your conduct. There must be some underpinning narrative that you tell yourself every morning and every evening, which actually reassures you and gives you the if you like, the sheet anchor on which your business is run. So purposefulness to me has started becoming something really important to me in my life and the way I run the London Chamber of Commerce.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Now, I've seen you at events. I see your passion, right? And I see that there's talks of loads of different changes happening to make things better for members. And so my question to you is, we have a lot of members at the Chamber that are either, very advanced in their business, they're making money, or they're startups. And you mentioned making money, making sure that money comes in is one of the key things. Now, what would you suggest for that person that's just starting up? What is the first thing that they need to do to make sure money comes in?
Get a business plan. Plan your business. Have a plan. Now, the plan isn't a blueprint. It's not something that, regardless of what happens, you just keep following on a cliff. Don't do that. But the plan enables you to sort of think for the future. Second thing is keep control of your cash. Really know where your cash is, know where it's coming from, get your bills paid promptly, and make sure that you don't spend money which you don't really need to think. So particularly in the early stage, it's not hoarding your cash, but it is actually making sure that you are in control of it. Because when I look at a lot of businesses, the thing that often keeps new business people awake at night is not their inspiration and not their products and not worrying about the market and everything. So, have I got enough cash in the bank? And I know what that feels like. I've run my own business where, you've got a VAT bill coming in and 2 clients haven't paid you on time and you dip into the personal savings in order to pay your staff. I know, that hurts. And that's very, very stressful. And that, to minimize that, just keep control of your cash. And then I suppose the next big thing is talk to people. A lot of businesses now are small businesses, 1 or 2 people, and it can be lonely. Your clients are never your colleagues. So even if you have a good relation with a client, they're not in the end a colleague. So going and meeting other businesses is very important. So we say the chamber is, we do what it says on the tin. A chamber is a big room where businesses meet and do business. They either do business or they share ideas. And I don't know what you found, Kate, but I find meetings of the Chamber of Commerce, and we have a lot. We have about 300 meetings a year. We find people are very, very willing to share ideas. And if somebody comes and asks me for my advice, I'm quite flattered, and I will give them my advice, or I will give them, some examples of where I've talked to them about their work. So I think there is that the role of the chamber in being, if you like, colleagues where you don't have colleagues, people you can talk to, people you can engage with. I think that's hugely helpful. And then finally, they're a huge source of expertise. And frankly, any problem you've got in a business, somebody else has had that problem before you. And what the chamber does, it gives you the opportunity of finding that person. So, that's what I feel. It's about creating a sense of community in that ecosystem, a sense that you're not alone when you're feeling down, and also a group of people you can go and show off to when it's going really well.
Absolutely. And what I love is the diversity of, the community that's been built within the Chamber of Commerce is awesome. And you've got people at all different levels, but we're all like-minded because everyone's striving for the same goal, right? Having a successful business, connecting, networking, all of that good stuff.
And that goes for people who've got a business with 1,000 employees. They're still trying to do that. I want a successful business. I want my staff to feel happy. I want to have enough time to actually use the disposable income I'm earning.
Yeah.
I want to feel happy. I want to feel content, and we're all trying to do the same thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. But one of the key things that actually, there's two key things that's come to mind now that really stands out is the amount of support that the chamber gives to the members, right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about having a business plan. Like you can literally have a coach and mentor, right, as being part of a member to help you with all of these things. Right, especially if you're a startup, even if you're not a startup and there's a gap or there's something that you're struggling with, an obstacle, you've got people there that you can go to that can totally help you with any of that stuff.
So yes, there's lots of services like that. A lot of our meetings are actually how-to meetings. They're teaching you how to do something. We have systems whereby you can get standard documents from us, HR advice, finance advice, and all that. And the mentoring program, which we run with Be the Business, I think is hugely important, particularly for people who've not been in, who are younger and who haven't either been in business, either running a business or been an employee very much. So, to provide that mentorship, and that's something, we're intending to expand. And I think the other diversity angle to us is, I think, increasingly, and we've worked very hard at this, is to reflect the true diversity of London. I mean, London is now obviously 52% female. Which is no surprise to anyone.
We're still winning.
Yes, we're still winning. It's 45% ethnic minority. And I think one of the really exciting things about London, this is brilliant. Within my work, the rest of my working life, London, we'll reach the point where London no longer has an ethnic majority.
Right.
Everyone will be a minority, and I think for a world city, a global city, a city which serves the interests of other countries as much as that, it will be just the most remarkable turning point for us. It will say something deeply profound about the strength of having diverse business communities. And so I'm really, excited about that. And we're working very hard to try and make sure the London Chamber, in all its dimensions, reflects diversity. The diversity is the strength of London. Diversity gives you resilience, it gives you strength, and so we're very anxious and keen to sort of promote and develop that.
Definitely. And again, you actually help to promote your members as well. Like you've got your magazines, right?
Yeah.
We even allow them to hold their own events.
We do. So yes, we have the magazine, London Business Matters, circulation of 18,000. We encourage our members to write articles and things in it. We have an app.
That's right, you do.
The app is great because it's got some channels on it, and it promotes ideas. So the idea that what we're trying to do is to promote ideas, which brings businesses from different sectors together. So, frankly, you can put businesses all from the same sector in the same room, and they're not going to, they'll have a moan together about the state of the world. Don't get much done. But if you bring businesses from different sectors, delivering different services, making different products, they're much more likely to do business together. So the app is trying to do that online. And as you're absolutely right, we promote our own events, but we allow our members to use our channels to promote their events as well, and to promote their skills and their engagement, both online and in the flesh.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of developments. There's been a lot of changes, right? And you're continuing to be creative and see what else we can do that's a lot better.
Yeah, because I'm an old man in a hurry, Kay, that's why.
No,
get on with it.
You just got a creative mind, right? And you can probably, with all your experience, you can probably see where the gaps are, where the future is moving to, and we got to keep ahead of that curve, right? We can't get left behind. And I feel like you're the ideal person that can keep your eye on the ball to make sure the Chamber of Commerce is always going to be at its best. So
I think that's partly, it comes back to the point I said about working on the business, not in the business.
Right.
So it's taking that step back and constantly saying, what is it we can do? What's the next thing we can do? I can rely on my colleagues to deliver the thing we want to do now. My job is to think about what's the next thing? What do we do differently? How do we reflect the way the world is changing and get ahead of that? How do we make ourselves relevant to businesses? How do we do things which aren't just useful to them, but excite them as well? And then finally, it's about the next generation. How do you excite younger people to come into business and to be engaged now? How do we encourage older people to stay in the workforce and give them, the pleasure and the stimulation of being at work. So all these things to me are, they're all equally important and all make up London as a city.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I got to ask, right? We're talking about the future and development. What is the next steps for the London Chamber of Commerce?
Right. Well, a lot of it now is going to be expansion of our international work, which I wanted to do when I arrived 3 years ago, but there was this thing called COVID, which sort of got away a bit. Anyway, that's gone away. So yes, we're expanding our international network. The way it will be based on the fact that, as the chief executive of the London Chamber of Commerce, I have a colleague doing my job in every city in the world. It's a unique network. No other business organization has that. So we're going to be targeting about 35 to 40 major cities around the world where we believe there are good business opportunities for our members and for businesses in London who are not yet our members. They won't often be the obvious cities. And the trouble is, where do you want to go? Oh, New York and Los Angeles. Well, everyone's going to New York and Los Angeles. You should be thinking about Nashville, which has got exciting dimension to it. It's got a vibrant economy. And in the way people say, the government often says, oh, we've got to go to the big markets. My feeling is that our businesses don't need to have a big market. They just need one client. That's all. Just one client will do. And that client could be in a small place. It could be in a smaller country. So, for instance, I've just been to Tallinn in Estonia, which has an e-residency and e-business registration scheme, which is a very elegant way of say British businesses being able to register within the EU, and for small businesses it's a very cost-effective way of doing it, and it's all digital. It's the most digitized country in the world. Wow. So I went there to look at that, and we'll be working with the Tallinn Chamber and the British Estonian Chamber to try and create a bridge for British businesses, small businesses in London particularly, to be able to establish a base within the European Union, and if you like, that will be an easier way, a point of access. So we're doing that. We're looking at America at the moment, which is a hugely complex. Where do you start with America? So we're looking at trying a novel way of trying to create a hub in America, some sort of hub which reaches out to some of these cities at the basis of looking at what our members want to do, and then they find the place that is done, rather than saying, well, go to Los Angeles and see if you find any luck there. So that's it. We're still working on our work around particularly ethnicity. I was very pleased that we created, under Lord Michael Hastings' leadership, a Black Business Association during COVID. That's going great guns. The Asian Business Association, which is largely Indian subcontinent based, I think is going well. I think we're learning a lot more about diaspora and its power. I think the trouble is we think of diasporas as being quite single. They're not. They're big spectrums. Yeah. People at one end whose papers have been who became citizens of the UK 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 generations ago, and at the other end, people who actually they're the first generation in the UK. And that range of relationships with the heritage country, if you like, is huge. And so what I'm hoping is these associations will help us understand that more and actually normalize the presence of ethnic minority business leadership in the corridors of power. And that's ultimately, my ambition. When you go to a big banquet at the Mansion House, I want to see more Black people sitting at the table than waiting at the table.
Right. Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that. Now, we're coming to the end of the episode, but if there was one last big advice you would give any business owner out there, what would it be?
Keep enjoying the business. Enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy what you do, stop doing it. Start doing something else. Life is too short not to have fun.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, Richard. And guys, I will be putting the links in the show notes below. So make sure you go to the link below and sign up to become a member. You won't regret it. I promise you. Once again, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much. and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.